So I'm very excited to welcome our first speaker of the afternoon session. Susie Wise has been dedicated to design in her work at the D.school at Stanford, thinking very intentionally about how we can put in design principles into the work that educators and students participate in, and also being intentional about the coaching, professional development, and mentoring that students receive. I love that we had lunch right before this to give us a little glimpse back into what it's like to be a high school student, because one of Susie's passions is driving school-wide change through the eyes of students. So please help me in welcoming Susie Wise.
Thank you. Hi, thank you. I'm really pleased to be here with all of you. I've got to get in the right spot with these lights, though. How about there? So yeah, I'm here from Stanford. It is actually my first time to North Dakota. Ted and Ken have been bragging about how many times they've been, and I can't join in that. But I'm excited that as part of my talk today, I'll announce that I'll be coming back a lot more. So that is coming soon. What I'm here to talk about is a little bit of response to, we've already been hearing this morning about make it local, make it your own, customize the work. I saw a tweet from Stephanie. Is Stephanie out there? Are you still tweeting? There was a tweet from Stephanie who was here earlier, and she was asking, so everyone's saying this, but how do we do it? So what I'm here to share is some of the ways that we think about how design and the mindsets of design can help us figure out the how. So first off, and very much honoring what Levi just said and the group that was here right before, we believe that all our schools should prepare all students for college, career, and civic life, and that all students is the equity piece of our work. By breaking out of the limiting structures that reinforce the status quo, what we've been talking about today, and by focusing on student voice and choice, which we've also been hearing about, and we have the cabinet here kind of as a representation of that, but I'll also be sharing some other tools for bringing that in. And it's within those ways that we can begin to make change now with our existing resources. This is a little bit of a nod to, we can't all build this incredible building that we're sitting in today. What can we do now? And how can we get started on the path to change right away? So we call this hacking toward deeper learning. And hacking, of course, can mean many things. In this work, it is an extremely positive stance towards getting to make that change right away. And before going any further, I thought I'd share just a short story of somebody who did some work in this hacking towards deeper learning at his school that will help us reflect on what I'm talking about. So this is Greg Elliot from Livermore, California.
As a principal, my natural tendency is to take a helicopter ride over the entire school and want to create broad programs. I wanted students to have more of a voice by first generating ideas for project-based learning that would interest them. The big idea at first was a competition where they create ideas for project-based learning and have it be voted on by the students within the class, and then have students actually do it within the classroom. The big idea was introduced to the students. They said, well, Mr. Elliot, that's a great idea, but there's been something we've really wanted to do. We've really wanted to have some lunch clubs, and some of our teachers are interested in that. They understood what I was after, and yet they're like, hey, we get it, but if you really want us to have a voice, this is where we want to go. It was great. My students hacked the hack. I think it's a true example of students having a voice. It germinated and started to grow within the period of a week. And then from there, it quickly spread as more teachers became interested and wanted to get involved. And then students wanted to find out more about those lunch club offerings. One of the goals as we move forward is to take the lunch club skill sets and apply it back into their core content classes and project-based learning units so the kids really see the connection. So that's the next step on that hack. And obviously there will be more hacks to come in other areas.
So one of the things that I like to share with folks is that I think that all humans, and in particular educators, are designers. You design things all day long, whether it's a particular lesson, whether it's curriculum, whether it's the way a particular corner of a classroom or school ends up looking, right? You're constantly designing and making of the learning environment. And yet we don't always necessarily consider ourselves designer in the deep sense. I think that you are designers not just of all those specific and tangible things that you design, but also of school culture. And school culture is what undergirds our ability to make change and to support students and their aspirations for the future. So I do like to ask this question, though, and I'm happy to get a show of hands. So can you design culture? Who says yes? Okay, I can't see people on these sides. Okay, some people say yes, a good majority, maybe half, and who says no? Okay, fewer people say no. And so we say yes and no. And this is how I think about it. We think about it, what is culture really? And there are lots of definitions of culture. One way to think of it is that it's the behaviors and mindsets of a group of people. And when you think of culture in that way, the behaviors and mindsets, you recognize that, of course, you can't get into someone's brain, right, and tune it. The things that you can create, though, are the things that let folks know that they are perhaps free to fail, able to share their ideas, seen as creative. And those are the behaviors and mindsets that make up the kind of culture that we're talking about here today. So what are the things you can design? You can design space, events, schedule. We've talked about that today, and we know that that's happening here. Finances, that's a piece of the puzzle. Process, roles. We haven't talked about that yet so much today. Rituals, very important. Incentives, communication. These are just some of the things you concretely can design that we often don't think about when we're thinking about change. We go narrowly into a sense of, let's communicate about the change that we're going to make. But these are a set of what we call levers that you can uniquely design. In particular, we think of classroom teachers can use all of these in their classrooms, and then school leaders can use them across the school. And when you're really trying to get to full school change, you need to start to employ many of these in order to get to the 4 C's, or deeper learning. Because of course, we want change, but what we really want is improvement. Some of the learning outcomes that we talk about in our work: academic mindset, knowing that you are a learner and that you belong in school, critical. Collaboration, of course, we've been talking about that a lot already. Really building the skills to be able to work with others and learn from them. Critical thinking, effective communication, being a self-directed learner, right? This is some of what we've already been hearing from some of the students on the panel, really wanting to drive your own learning, and mastery of core academic content, of course, that runs throughout. When we think of those outcomes, these are the powerful, deeper learning or 21st century outcomes that we're really trying to build our professional development around. And the way we do it is through this process. This is our School Retool Change Framework. This is not a new thing for you to do. This is a way to take, first off, your aspiration for what your school can look like. We've heard some great ones from leaders already today. And then get concrete about behaviors that you want to see. This can sometimes be harder to be really articulate about. So if your aspiration is that students at your school have a love of learning and are able to collaborate and think critically in all their creative endeavors, what does it actually look like if we were to invite someone to visit your school? Or if you were taking a parent around, what would you hear a student say? What would you hear a teacher say? Well, a student might be able to talk to you about what he or she learned from somebody else. Right? They might be able to share with you or with their parents why the project they're working on really matters, right? Like we heard about Chris's project earlier today. Those are the kinds of things, those are concrete behaviors. Those are not programs to run, they're behaviors that we're looking for. And then the big ideas. This is that notion of there's some great practices that we already know about in project-based learning, in advisory, in internships. These are programs that we know about, but to Stephanie's tweet earlier, how do you actually start to do that at your school? Now, if you're super brave, right, you can start at full scale, tell all your parents that it's going to happen, and you have that pit in your stomach, like he shared earlier today. You have that pit in your stomach for many months, like, I really hope this is going to work. For the less brave, perhaps, right, we want to think about how do you start really small? And by small, I mean don't roll out the program, but actually think about what's the one thing I could try next week with one teacher and 5 students, with 5 students over lunch tomorrow. We're getting down to what we call small hacks. These are what we consider small, scrappy experiments. And then I was super excited when we were on the panel about SB 2186 to hear the open-mindedness about how we might evaluate these innovations. Because the critical piece of this change framework then is to observe, if you do that small hack next week, did the kids light up? Was the teacher excited? Did you actually get students working together? Did they have ideas for that project in the frame that you gave them? That's what we're looking for. Do those behaviors that we hope to see, do they start to manifest? Not way down the road on tests, but right away, can you see them? That builds your confidence to keep going and to figure out if you're on the right track. So this is a framework that we're really interested in sharing with all of you to get to accelerating with those hacks. The critical thing that underlies it and is that difference between feeling brave, right, and feeling trepidatious is to think through some of these mindsets and to begin to start to feel some of these mindsets. We focus on 3. So we don't introduce the whole design process. We just focus on 3 mindsets for educators. A bias towards action. Don't overthink it. Just try it. You're onto something. You're basing it on a practice that you've heard about or seen that you're interested in. Try it. Try it soon. Start small, right? Not the 5-year rollout, not the thing that needs a bond measure, but what's the small piece of what you want to do that you could try out? And then fail forward and learn. This is a critical piece. We struggle with it when we were looking at some of the notions coming out of business from the piece that Ken shared. The legislators and I were talking about it. The one thing that might not be there is how do we embrace failure? That's, I think, is another thing that employers and others in our culture are looking for us. If we're going to be entrepreneurial and take risks, we have to have ways to understand failure. And so that's a third really important mindset, I think, for all educators who are making change. And on that note, since we've also been doing a lot of sit and get, I would love to try just a quick exercise with you around embracing failure. So if you don't mind, you need a partner. You can stay in your rows, but if you could just take 1 second and partner up and then look back to me once you're in a partner. Go ahead. We're doing an actual activity here, friends. Okay, sounds like you found your friends. And to work on this, so what we're going to do, this is a little exercise just to practice this mindset of failing forward to learn. And so what I'm going to ask you to do is you're going to push yourself to fail, but I'm going to give you something that I think you know how to do. So you're going to count 1, 2, 3. First of all, just in the group, can everybody do that? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, you're going to keep going. You're going to do it in your pair, so you might want to get closer if you're far away from each other. In your pair, you're going to alternate count. So it's going to be, I'm looking at you too, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So look at each other and do a little capping. Go as fast as you possibly can. Go ahead. Okay. All right. Okay. I can tell some of you have struggled with this a little bit already, and this is good because remember, what are we doing? We're practicing failing forward. Okay, but I want to make sure you have this experience. So in addition, you need to fail at this task. You know how to count to 3, but I want you to fail at it. So you want to go faster, and just to make sure that you mess up a little bit, instead of saying the number 1, whenever you would say the number 1 in your counting, please clap. Okay, so it's clap, 2, 3, go. Okay. I could hear a lot more failure. I could hear a lot more failure. What was happening when you failed there? There was laughing. What else? There was some, there was some squealing. What else did we hear? There was also some body language. There's some cringing. There's some cringing, right? You're like, oh. Now remember, you're counting 1, 2, 3. No need to cringe. No need to cringe. So here's what I want to propose. I'm going to make it more difficult, but I would like to propose, in the spirit of embracing failure, that we adopt the circus bow. So the circus bow, you may recall, is whenever anything goes wrong, you say, ta-da! So can everybody try that with me? 1, 2, 3. Ta-da! Thank you. Okay, so now you're going to go faster. You're also going to clap on 1, snap on 2, say 3. And every time you mess up, you and your partner both ta-da. Go. There we go. Ta-da, ta-da. All right. Okay. Ta-da. All right, bring it back. So, oops. Oh no. Oh, ta-da on my slides. So, bias towards action, start small, fail forward to learn. These are the critical mindsets of innovation. Right? This is what lets you do those small, scrappy experiments, those hacks, and avoid the giant rollout. Again, in some cases, the giant rollout, you're ready for it, you've done enough hacking, you're ready for it, that's great. But in most cases, when you're just getting going and you're getting yourself moving, you want to think about the small, scrappy experiment, and these mindsets are going to undergird that for you. Quick story, one last story here. This is Tim Carlin. He's a middle school principal in Wheat Ridge, Colorado. His school had a really bad culture. He joined one of our school Retool cohorts, and this was a school where they could not even do assemblies. And he wanted to, his aspiration was to build a student-centered culture with a deep love of creative learning. That was his aspiration. And he got inspired by, remember, you get inspired by a big idea that's out there. He got inspired by advisory, or what EL Learning calls crew. So that notion of building a small learning unit where every child has a deep relationship with an adult. He really wasn't sure what that would look like at a school, but he kind of wanted to roll it out. And so we worked with him on get it smaller, get it smaller, get it smaller. And he did a series of experiments with 1 teacher and 10 students at a time. Every week they tried something new with a different configuration and tried different kinds of advisory activities so that students could be at the center and that they could learn together, with the teacher stepping off of her regular position as sage on the stage. The interesting thing was he found those early adopter teachers that wanted to join in. They had built enough momentum with those small, scrappy experiments that they were excited enough, the kids were excited enough. They wrote a grant over the summer so that they could spend time developing their own crew program. They developed that, and then because they had so much teacher buy-in around that program that they had kind of homegrown but taken from some big ideas that were out there in the field, they were ready then for that next year to really actually do more of a rollout. And the amazing thing about that, not only now does he have a greater sense of belonging for the students, and yes, indeed, on that measure of can they have assemblies, yes, they can. In fact, they had one assembly where every single person, from the janitor through every single student, participated in a group puzzle in the gym, something they could never have done before. They did that work together. And now the teachers are so moved by what they see their students are capable of doing that now they can really start on the journey of project-based learning, because the teachers are ready to step away outside of their comfort zone because of the relationships that they've been building. So just a story of where you can get to with this spirit of starting small and a bias towards action. We are growing a national network of deeper learning hackers, of innovations in education hackers. And you might notice that there is a star up there on North Dakota. The exciting thing is that we're announcing today that applications are open for 20 leaders from North Dakota to be the first cohort that is part of the School Retool Fellowship here in North Dakota. Applications are live until July 1st, and we're really excited to do work with you in the fall. This is for folks that are ready to raise their hand to say, how do I do it? I want to get started. The experience itself is pretty tight experience. It's 4 professional development days, but most importantly, those are days that maybe are away from your school site. What really matters is in between each of those are your cycles of hacking. So please do think about that. If you are a leader or if you know a leader, we're very excited to have the opportunity to build this cohort here. In addition, and in relationship to this, wanted to mention the quick wins. We think this is something that we do. We have starter kits for getting started on hacks. So this is something that you don't have to design for yourself. But think about some of these things to do. These are for you as an educator to start to see your school in a different way. One of the things that we do in the realm of design is draw inspiration from taking different points of view. So moving your desk for a day, bringing a student to a staff meeting, bringing a student to a hiring committee, right? Or an advisory for one. Just try a conversation with one student and deeply advise them on their next move around their next project or something bigger that they might be dealing with. And checking on the student safety net. This is putting up all the names of a group of students and just with a group of faculty, stickering on them. Are all these students known? Are there any students that nobody can put a sticker by? Now that may not be possible in a small school, that might not be an issue, but in larger schools it can often be. It can even be an issue in small schools, so checking on that. These are a set of activities that we like to share to get you started on that mindset shift of seeing your school in a different way. This opens you up to both what's not working and also to what possibilities there are in a new way. And lastly, the thing that I want to mention, and this will be our segue into bringing out our panel, is the Shadow a Student Challenge. Shadowing a student is a known practice, right? Many of you have heard of this before. The issue with it is it's hard to make time. Shadowing a student for a day requires having a day with either a substitute, if you're in the classroom, or no meetings, if you're a leader. And so sometimes marking that off on your calendar can be hard. It is such an incredible practice. I have sat now in many, many rooms where groups come back after doing their shadow, and there are tears, and there is joy too, but there are real realizations of some of the barriers that are preventing us from moving ahead with more student-centered learning. So taking that point of view, walking a mile in your students' moccasins, and seeing what school is like through their eyes is a really powerful practice. We have some North Dakotans that have already taken up this practice, and they're going to join me now for the panel, and we'll have a little bit more conversation about student-centered learning. So if you want to think about questions, they are questions around how to be more student-centered in your work. Shall we bring out the panel?
Yes, that sounds great. Please help me enjoying Dr. Joel Schlaker on the stage here.
Joel.
Hello. Friend Molly from she's an independent consultant and a former teacher with Cultivate 21. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Leslie Bieber, superintendent at Alexander Public Schools. Thank you, Leslie.
I feel like I'm the moderator here.
Oh, no, it's okay.
And certainly last but not least, Cole Garman, another student cabinet member from Mandan Public Schools originally. So thanks so much. All right.
Cool, so we are excited to chat together, and both Joel and Molly have stories of their recent shadow days that they did, so we thought we would kick it off by talking about that. Do you want to kick us off, Joel?
Sure. It was, I saw it on Twitter, and I thought I would accept the challenge. Through my roles as a classroom teacher to an associate principal, and then now to a district office position, I thought this was a good opportunity to understand from the student's perspective, what it really looks like. I have my own son who recently graduated from high school, so I got to hear his perspective. But I thought, what a great opportunity for a full day of learning from a student. And so it was kind of an interesting perspective, because as a classroom teacher, I always ask myself, would I want to be a student in my own classroom? And so I took it from that lens. And I wanted to eliminate the bias, make sure I didn't have overgeneralizations, but in the end, after shadowing the student for the day, I didn't want to leave it at that. So I started down crafting a blog post just to get some of my thoughts out there. And the blog post was based on a natural versus unnatural learning by Jackie Goldstein. And I'll just, there were 4 things that were confirmed through my blog post. One was sitting on comfortable desks and chairs and expected to pay attention for long periods of time. So by that, I mean there was a lack of active and engaged learning. Number 2, be quiet, limited interaction with peers, and by that I mean lack of student voice in classrooms. Students learn in isolated content without real-world context, and by that I mean lack of authentic learning. And number 4, the curriculum not connected to learn with others outside the classroom, and by that, lack of collaboration. So as I thought about these things, I'm like, we can do so much better. And I'm going to say this wasn't across all classes that I shadowed this student. There were some pockets of really important things going on in those classrooms. So examples of all these, the exact opposite of what I just said. So there were some outstanding things going on in the classrooms, but I always wonder about, okay, we have pockets of innovation, we have pockets of really good things going on in our schools and classrooms, so how can we move to a culture of innovation is something that I always think about. So a wonderful opportunity that I would encourage all administrators, teachers to participate in.
Awesome. Yeah, and Molly, love to hear from you too. And the notion here is, right, with the frame of the design and small, scrappy experiments, is you take those experiences, positive or negative, and the design frame of mind lets you think, gosh, what can I do to change this? You turn that into a how might we? How might we make, right, our classrooms more connected to the real world? So that's the real potential there. So let's hear about you.
I participated in the Shadow Student Challenge 3 years ago, and I actually challenged all of the administrators in the Metro to do this with me. And it was a collaboration with Fargo Moorhead in West Fargo, and we had almost all of our administrators participate, and I participated as well because this was what we needed to do. And I too saw a lot of really great things, but I left with this feeling of we can do better. We can do better. There were opportunities for me to be engaged, and for me it was super fun because there were some of my own students who were in these, former students that were in these classes, and I got to collaborate with them. But then there were other times where it was definitely sit and get. And I kept wondering, you know, how could we make this a more engaging experience? And I know how to do that. And so it caused some conversations. And I think from that, a lot of really great conversations happened among the administrators as well. And that trickled into conversations in the classroom. So that was really, really a great thing.
Great. So wanted to hear from Leslie and Cole. Maybe Cole, if you want to kick us off. What are some of the ways that you think about sharing the student perspective? One way we know, structurally, you're on the state superintendent's cabinet, but what are other ways that you see the student perspective being able to show up in the work?
I see the student's perspective being more important to administrators than most think, because from your side, it's just kind of like looking in on the fish tank and you're not really knowing what the fish are thinking, but I mean, we're just sitting there and a lot of it is sit and get, and it's just, sometimes it's not easy to grasp that. Like, parabolas are fun and all, but I mean, a real world application would really benefit a lot of students. And I think when an administrator or a teacher would sit in and see the student's perspective of learning, they'd really understand, and it would benefit their teaching style, it would benefit the way that they do things in the workplace.
One of the themes we've been talking about today is that transition from high school to college, and you're in college now. How do you see your preparation from high school, and what of the things we've been talking about today are showing up for you?
Peyton Cole touched earlier on project-based learning, and that was a big thing that we were discussing when we were talking about the transition from high school to college, how important that would have been in high school for that transition. Because in college, sometimes you're just given, here's your goal, show me how to get there. And a lot of the times in high school, you're just given instructions, and you have no creativity, no anything. You just da 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 da, and then you finish, and that's it. You get a 93, whatever. So project-based learning would really get people more active in their learning, and I feel like it would boost test scores, it would get kids more involved, it would really benefit every spectrum of teaching.
Leslie, you want to take us into the realm of how you are outside of just this practice of shadowing, how are you, which I know you're intending to do, but how are you thinking about student-centered practices in your school?
Well, excuse me, in Alexander we started with the term 3 years ago, hands-on projects. And we moved our way into STEM, having STEM days, and now we are a STEAM school, K through 12. And we're also project-based learning, that in our first year. So speaking with Molly backstage, she's going to take me to my next step. Moving with Ken K, though, in building our vision and using the 4 C's and using his style of building our vision, the topic with the students led us into starting an innovation course, which was new to us in our second semester. And after probably a month of that, we took that even further into what's called a genius hour, that we go K through 12. And so everyone, even the little kinders, even the 4-year-olds, we have preschool in Alexander, have well, not an hour in preschool. I just go in to visit once in a while. I'm never left alone with them. But where they have time to come up with their own ideas and explore them, and they can do it in choices, they can do it in groups, they can do it individually, they can present, they can create. So we're just slowly building that process of getting those students and having their choice.
Have you, and as we're sharing, because I think you guys are going to share some more of the innovations that you're working on, let's remember to keep coming back to like the small Scrappy experiment too. Like how did that innovations course come about?
Actually, it came about one student. It came about one student who was looking at dropping out. And he's good with his hands, he's a genius. In fact, my straightener that I'd had for 10 years broke down, I brought it to him. I'm still using it. So, it just kind of created from there, and then we ended up with 16 kids in the innovation course. And so it really, small steps, lots of failures, and that is one of the toughest things, is for educators to fail and know that it's okay.
Yeah, that's a great story. So that inspiration from one student and then trying it out, you see, right, at times you think, gosh, I can't do that because then is it going to work for everyone? But the point is you try it out and you see, and if it's something interesting and powerful, right, others want to be a part of it. And so that hack mentality helps you build, as you observe, it helps build that momentum. It's really powerful. Who else would like to share? Yeah.
Are we supposed to talk about our hack?
Yeah.
All right. So my hack actually it started as a small idea, but then it ended up becoming this bigger idea. I knew that I loved sharing what was working in the classroom to make 21st century learning happen, STEM happen, project-based learning happen. And before I knew it, my little hack of trying to do some professional development here and there for different districts became a big hack. And so my big hack is that I created Cultivate 21 as a way to take the scariness away from becoming a 21st century school. And so I can work with you and work with your teachers, your administrators, to help you to break it down into the smaller Scrappy experiments to get you to that space of feeling comfortable and confident in this work. Because this work is the right work. It's the work that we all need to be doing. And we can't be afraid to fail, because it's through that failing forward that we really can grow our curriculums. We can grow the way that kids interact with one another, and they can really truly be that person that's going to make a difference in the world.
Awesome. Do you have a specific one that you want to share of a PBL hack that turned into something, or?
Oh, sure. I've been working with a district, and they actually use ag as part of their STEAM, which is kind of interesting. But they're now in like a third iteration of creating project-based learning experiences. It gets easier as you go, but they have created some really wonderful experiences where kids are actually doing the work. Like they ended up doing a landscaping project because they ended up having some water drainage issues. And so these kids, at the school, they created this space, and now they're all very proud of that. And now all the other school buildings are saying, hey, do we get to do that next year? So it's really fun how things just start to they blossom. They grow from taking the time to just jump. I have a friend that said, quit dipping your toe in. You need to just go ahead and put the goggles on and jump off the high dive. Because when you jump off the high dive and you hit the water, you can figure it out. You won't drown.
Awesome. Jill, do you want to share?
Sure. There's lots of examples in our district of little hacks going on. We've talked about Genius Hour and project-based learning, problem-based learning, inquiry-based learning, challenge-based learning, whatever you want to call it. But the one thing that I just want to point out is, as a technology director, I'm probably an oddball when it comes to my role because I came from the classroom teacher world rather than the technical world. And so I'm fortunate to have a good technical team. So my focus is oftentimes on the student and what does it mean for the student. So about a year and a half ago, we had an opportunity, we started learning about breakout boxes, breakout EDU. And it gravitated toward the technology department, although it didn't have anything to do with technology, which was kind of interesting. But we have curriculum tech partners across our district who go into classrooms, work with teachers and students, and do fabulous things. So they signed themselves up for the project and said, we'll do this. And they did an outstanding job of getting those breakout boxes into the classroom. And breakout box, if you don't know, it's a series of directions, and students have to work together and collaborate and critical think to get to a point of breaking into this little box. And so, although it's not related to technology, we had a department that was willing to take that on, get that across the district. It generated momentum and enthusiasm for that project, critical thinking, and collaboration among students. And then that led to students wanting to write their own games. You had fifth graders wanting to write for the kindergarten class, and you had teachers wanting to write games for their own curriculum area. So I would call that a small hack that would make a big difference, and it's kind of generated itself across our district.
The other thing that we said we would do in terms of our panels, we sometimes, from a design perspective, we like to talk about what's not working and then turn that into a Scrappy experiment that could make change. So I think some folks have some gripes they would like to share, but we could also, if anybody in the audience has a gripe they would want to share, we could take on one of yours as well. But Leslie, do you maybe want to start us off?
Yeah, I'll start out with PBL. My traditional teachers do not want to move away from their book, and they're so afraid of the work that may come into it. And just being here, I've written probably 7 or 8 different PBL projects or different projects that I can take back to my building. So I guess my gripe that I would like a Scrappy experiment of is who's willing to take on a state PBL lesson plan sharing Google Doc? All right, we have a volunteer right there. Somebody write her name down. Thank you.
Awesome. Great, so get it, right? So there you go. That could be the thing that stops Leslie in her tracks. Oh, I can't do it, right? I can't do it. My teachers don't want to do PBL. But the fact is, right, she wants to figure out what is a light way for me to pull in some projects that might be ready to go from others. There's going to be some network effect goodness that likely comes out of that, or everyone discovers, gosh, don't do that project. That one doesn't work at all, which is great because remember, we want to figure out what doesn't work just as much as we figure out what does work. Who else has a gripe they want to share?
Well, I guess I have another. Parents, trying to get parents away from an A. My kid's GPA has to be. How are you teaching to the ACT? And I keep thinking, did you even take the ACT? No, I'm just teasing. But to get them away from a grading point where we're teaching to the standards. We're not just teaching to, well, you do this G.I. Joe 93, right? So trying to get parents to move beyond that as well is really a challenge for us.
Yeah. So how might we help parents see this innovative education, right, for what it's worth? What are some ideas, either on the panel or in the audience? My first idea is shadow Cole. Right? Get a parent to go with Cole for a day. He has to agree, of course, right? But this work of empathy and kind of seeing what things really look like and feel like and recognizing, gosh, that's not the only thing that they need to be successful in college or in life. Right? Other ideas from the gallery? Or from up here on the panel?
Have like businesses in your community and shadow your students or be a part of your day. It's just another influence and input to back you and support you.
Yeah.
And I think it goes the other way as well. Teachers need to spend time in industry. And we need to see what the real world really looks like. And so through experiences, internship experiences, even if it's a day or 3 hours, going and seeing what's happening in industry where we can actually see where the 21st century skills are being used, it really does make a huge difference on how you start to build a project-based learning experience. When you first begin with the empathy and then you understand a real-world problem and can move toward a real solution and let kids actually implement the real solution, magic happens.
And again, that's a small, scrappy approach to it, too. That doesn't mean every teacher, right? You don't need a week of PD for everybody to go do it. You don't need an exhaustive research grant. It's who do people know, and can we get out there? Can we spend some half days? Can we spend some time? Can we get folks coming in? Can we go out? Can we try that and see what it generates? And then the thing, again, with that small, scrappy experiment is, oh, what did we get from that? Did we get juice from that? Great. That means then we want to go out to some more employers and do more of it. And from there, the organic nature of innovation actually starts to take over.
I guess my gripe is the thought that by, whether it's the educational community, students, parents, whoever, that technology somehow transforms learning. And technology in and of itself does not transform learning. It still has to be the classroom teacher. It still has to be a learner-centered, inquiry-based, project-based classroom. And so how do we get beyond saying if we put a Chromebook, an iPad, a computer in front of a student, that it's automatically going to do wonders? How do we move teachers from that low-level substitution model in the SAMR model and get teachers to think of moving up the ladder to where it transforms learning? And I guess one of the thoughts was, how do we get teachers to be connected educators, to see what other educators are doing to move from the substitution point up to transform learning? So that's one of the things that I think about frequently.
And that kind of takes us into that idea of support and having that continuous support when you're going through these hacks. You know, it's scary at first to jump off the diving board, but when you have that support to bring you back up and to know that you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay, and some things are going to go well, some are not going to go so well, and you'll learn from those things. It's okay. It's okay to make mistakes, and it's okay to own the mistakes. You know, like the kids, they need to see us make mistakes. And it's important for them to know that we're not perfect and that life is not perfect, but we can do our best to grow ourselves every single day and live in that space of continuous improvement and model that.
That's one of the powerful things about shadowing a student, actually, is we tend to find that every student that is shadowed is so moved by that, and it is an opportunity to, part of what I hear you saying in that too is the humbleness that needs to come with innovation. Like there's a lot of, gotta be brave, gotta do the thing, but there's also a humbleness to say to a student, you know, I really want to understand what this school looks like from your perspective, and that's why, you know, I would love if you would allow me to follow you for the day. So that's really powerful, and that connects then to that spirit of doing those small, scrappy experiments or hacks. think we're out of time for this panel, but I just wanted to mention that Shadow a Student Challenge, shadowstudent.org is the website that you can get the toolkit, you can sign yourself up on the map, and get periodic emails, pretty rare, like not very often, but there's a downloadable toolkit that you can use with anyone, with others, completely free. And then again, the School Retool Fellowship, which is for leaders, that application is live now, closes July 1st. We'll be doing that in partnership with the Department of Public Instruction, and we're really excited to do that, and it's my opportunity to get to come back to North Dakota. So thank you so much, and thank you to all the panelists for being willing to share.
Thank you for inviting us.